Describe the events of the French and Indian War, American History 1, Unit 1. This is video 3, part 2. French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. The main two opponents are France and the United Kingdom or England. This is fought in 3 theaters or 3 stages. There will be battles in North America, there will be battles in Europe, and there will be battles in India. So you could see this as the very first World War. This is also known as the 7 Years' War in world history. From the American perspective, we call this the French and Indian War because the French and Indians are attacking the Americans and the English. So we have battles here in Europe, we have battles in India, and we have battles in North America. We're going to focus mainly on the battles in North America because this is American history. On one side, we have the American colonists and the English, so America and the United Kingdom, or England, versus the French and the American Indians. Now, not all of the American Indian tribes allied with the French, some allied with the English, but for the most part, it's going to be the French and the American Indians because they had a better relationship, but also because underneath of all this is really the battle for land, and the battle for land is between the American Indians and the American colonists. Here is a map of America going into the war. You can see that Spain, not really involved in this, is down in the southwest and in Florida. What we're really focusing on is the battle for land between the French in the blue and the English or British or Great Britain in the pinkish red. And that's what this simply is. And so this especially, what we are going to talk about is this battle between these red and blue lined areas. There's a bunch of skirmishes in America leading up to this. American colonists wanting to move west, American colonists moving west, running into French territory, running into American Indian territory, causing a bunch of problems, which will eventually escalate into the French and Indian War or the 7 Years' War. First, the British and the Americans are not doing so well, and then they come up with this great genius idea, William Pitt. Wow, what a brilliant idea. What great military strategy did he come up with? How did he manage to turn the tide and to win the war? Are you wondering what was his military genius idea? It was spend more money. It's like, hey, we want to win this war. Maybe if we spend more money, we buy more guns, and we recruit more soldiers, and we have more medicine, and we have more bombs, maybe, just maybe, we can win this war. And guess what? It works. It works in a lot of cases. Anything that you do, if you just spend more money on whatever your project is, you tend to get better results. Not always the case, but money does tend to help in life a little bit. So the big trick here, I guess if we're going to give any genius insight, is that what they really do is they spend the money on America and on India as well. England realizes that there's been battles and wars over Europe for hundreds of years, and very often no one gains any territory. You might get a little bit, but then you lose a little bit. And so they decide, why waste our time fighting or spending our money and our resources into Europe? No one's going to get anything here. Fine, we'll still battle, but where we're really going to focus our resources is where we can actually gain territory. England realizes they can actually gain territory if they can be victorious in North America, if they can be victorious in India. So they pour their money into the battles that they win because in those places they can gain land. And one of the biggest losses of France is the Battle of Quebec. I don't really go into a lot of the battles in this class, but this one's kind of interesting. And you can see the kind of cool situation here. So the American colonists, mainly the British, are going to scale this cliff and take over the French and beat them. And hooray, this is a big turning point. The English end up winning the war. But one of the more unique things here is the death of General Rolfe in this famous painting. And you're just looking at this painting, and obviously it's over dramatic. But it's interesting in that it's just not really true. I mean, yes, General Rolfe died, but everything else here is obviously an exaggeration. It's hyperbolic. Everything, and it's not just an exaggeration, a lot of it's made up. The people that are in this painting weren't really at the specific event. And do you think these guys' uniforms look like that in the middle of a battle? Do you think that this American Indian stopped in the middle of the battle and took time to go, very interesting? Is it kind of racist to paint the noble savage? He is obviously pondering something. So beyond that, and the caricature and the weirdness that it creates, but we are completely just rewriting history. And this is not something that, we used to do then. We are still actively doing this today. We see many, maybe not necessarily historians, but people re-envisioning, and we're not just having fun, like, you look back at the past and make up these fun stories for novels or for fiction. We have people that are actively looking back at the past and re-envisioning and recreating it and pretending that it's nonfiction, pretending that it's true. So here's a perfect example of the painter recreating the history and re-envisioning the history and then passing it off as this is what happened. That isn't what happened. You are exaggerating. You're putting people in the painting that weren't even at the actual event. But do you think anyone really knew to call that out then? Just like today, when people are re-envisioning what happened 100, 150, 200 years ago. A lot of people don't know any better. And so when they hear the re-envisioned, recreated history, and they're told the new story or the new narrative, they don't know any better. And so they believe the lie. Just like the people that saw this painting 200 years ago, like, yeah, man, General Rolfe died and that India was so distraught, really just thinking, how could this be? The duality of man. No, that didn't happen, but they didn't know then. Just like today, unfortunately, there's many people telling you things that may not be true. They are recreating, they are exaggerating, they're blowing some things up and then dismissing other things, just like in this picture. Now, the funnier thing, like on the lighter side, well, this isn't funny, but I guess you can laugh at a man's death 300 years later. It's funny now. Well, you know what, though? It hasn't quite been 300 years yet. I'm sorry. But 250 years later, is it okay to laugh at a man's death? Possibly. Anyway, we'll pretend that it is. On the lighter side, the battle lasted a whole 15 minutes, and General Rolfe managed to find a way to die. So they scale the cliff, and they battle for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. The length of this video. He could not stay alive for the length of this video. I know you're saying, I can't stay alive for the length of these videos either. Anyway, 15 minutes, the guy can't make it, and he dies. What are you doing, General Rolfe? If you can't survive. Anyway, so England wins the battle, the Treaty of Paris, 1763. So this is one of those note things. And there's been a lot of different treaties. And a lot of times these treaties come from France. And so you get them confused. So do your best to remember the country and the date. Now, the war was in Paris? No, this is where they signed the treaty, but this is what ends the French and Indian War. So the Treaty of Paris ends the French and Indian War. Treaty of Paris, 1763. Got to remember that number because there's going to be other treaties of Paris. So Treaty of Paris, 1763, ends the French and Indian War. Peace. French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. We will declare peace. The French will give up. Yay, America! And the English, we win. Awesome. Not so fast, because the American Indians, it's easy for the French to give up because the French still have France. The French still have plenty of other colonies. They can just walk away. The American Indians can't walk away. This is their land. If they lose and they give it up, where are they going to go? So the American Indians, many of them don't want to quit. And so we have Pontiac's rebellion after the Treaty of Paris. This is like the war, the post-war war. Pontiac's rebellion here in the Midwest. And you can see the different battles up here in Ohio, Indiana, and in Pennsylvania. This is the American Indians saying, well, they quit, but we're going to keep on fighting because we know we don't want to give up our land. And it's been described as a genocidal war on both sides, meaning that both sides hated each other and that they wanted to kill the other side because it was the other side. The Americans just wanted to kill all the Indians. The British just wanted to kill all the Indians. But also, the American Indians also just wanted to kill all the Americans. Just get rid of them. Get rid of all of them. Kill them all, and then we'll have our land back. This was not good. And there's really not a positive on this. Well, they started it, or you can blame and you can point fingers. But either way, when you step away from the blame and you look at the actions, they still were doing some pretty rough stuff on each other. And it will get worse here. Eventually, they'll sign a peace treaty, and we will decide that, or not we, but the British will decide, look, here's the deal. We'll work this out. We're not complete jerks, even though you're going to see throughout the course of American History 1 and American History 2, all of these deals with the American Indians. it sounds like a good deal at first, but then it's like, all right, now we're going to kick you over here. Now we're going to move you over here. And then we just, and we renege and we go back on every single promise. I keep saying we, but the British, the Americans, they rescind every promise. They go back on the word. So this is just another one of the early examples of, all right, look, we don't have to kill each other anymore. We promise you get this land. We got this land. Everything's good. So what the British will say to the American Indians is say, look, if you stop fighting, you can have everything west of this red line, from the Mississippi River to the red line. This is all of our land now because Britain won the war, so they get all this land that used to belong to France. France still owns all the stuff way out west, which is just absolute wilderness. But this land that Britain owns says, look, American Indians, you can have Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, you name it. All this land belongs to you. And the colonists are going to have to stay on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains. They're going to have to stay east of this red line, which is the Appalachian Mountains. You get west of the mountains, they get east of the mountains. The mountains will work to separate the two of you crazies from killing each other. Everything's going to work out. And so the American Indians say, all right, I guess we can make that work. But just like it will in the future anyway. One of the bigger examples of heinous war crimes is, this isn't at the exact peace treaty. This is during one of the negotiations early on, in which the British, and they have documents to show this, give blankets infested with smallpox to the American Indians with the objective of spreading a disease that will kill the American Indians. Remember, go back to what I said before. This was a genocidal war. They wanted to kill each other because it was, it was kind of about land, but they hated each other. And they saw the only way that they were ever going to get that land is if they killed all the other people, and they would never have any problems again. The American Indians saw that the only way that the problems are going to go away is if the white people went away. And the American colonists thought that the only way that their problems would go away is just kill all those people that look different from us. So not a good war. And so not at all surprising that they would go beyond shooting each other, go beyond stabbing each other, and they would use biological warfare and spread smallpox. Yeah! Okay, I won't put it on the screen again. Yeah! It's not funny. It's very serious. Very serious. I'll try to go through real quick. Okay. So biological warfare will start during the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War. Pretty crazy. You'll probably remember that. You'll forget everything else I talk about in the video, but that's just the way that it works, because I showed you that creepy smallpox picture, and you'll know that, yep, the Americans were terrible. Yeah, we were. We've done some really terrible things. And so have every other country on Earth. That doesn't mean that, well, just because they did it, no, it doesn't mean that we could completely dismiss all the evil things we've done because other people have done evil things too. No, you just got to own what we have done and own the mistakes and then just move forward. It's not going to do you any good watching this video crying over a blanket that had smallpox on it. If you're already crying, please stop, because they don't even know if it worked. Historians disagree or don't agree whether did it really lead to any smallpox outbreaks. They don't have any evidence that it was even effective. Some people believe that, yeah, it did. They took the blankets home and there was a smallpox outbreak. Other historians say, well, we can't really trace that, and there was already a smallpox outbreak happening, so we don't even know if this even worked. So you don't have to cry because we don't know for sure if it ain't kill anybody. But if you want to cry over the intent, the intentions, the motivation, yeah, you can probably cry over humankind being absolutely evil at times. But 250 years ago, it's not going to do you any good right now. And there's not a bigger lesson to learn other than, yeah, you're going to go over a lot of terrible events in this course. But what they did 250 years ago does not by any means tell you what we do today. Just because bad things happened in this geographical space 250 years ago doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that your government is a bad person. It doesn't mean that our military is a bad person. It doesn't mean that we have all kinds of isms going on because of a blanket 250 years ago. It was a blanket 250 years ago. Generally, there was some bad stuff happening then. And generally, we have some bad stuff happening today. But they're not necessarily connected. That's one of the things that I want to make sure that you know early on in this course, especially when we're going back 200 years. Don't try to connect everything. Don't try to find some problem today and connect it to some root way back when. Not everything is connected like that. history, it's kind of vague. Anyway, so here you go, Treaty of Paris, 1763. There's the before. Here's the after. Yay, England! The colonists are not going to be happy about this because the colonists wanted to move west. Oh, the colonists are mad about the Navigation Acts, right? They can only trade to so many people. And now the colonists, after they fought and won a war, America, yeah, we won. Wait, we can't move west? Why did we fight this war for? Why did we fight the French and the Indians out west if we can't take the land out west? What are we doing? So Americans not happy about the situation. And guess what? England's got a little bit of a problem too. Remember I told you they won the war by spending a lot of money? We got to borrow that money. And they borrowed that money from banks. And they won the war. Now it's time to pay back the money to the banks. How's England ever going to be able to pay that money back? How can a government pay off its debt? The same way they always do, by taxing the citizens.